Maybe we can share an ice cream.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson with CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Hi.
You fucked it up, Jeremy. You fucked it up.
Well, I'm still laughing at the last one.
Yeah, it's okay. And Barrett Share from Music Video Sins.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about the year of 1992 and our continuing Best of the Years We've Been Alive series.
Now I swear.
She will be mine.
Dick, 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 dick.
Hoo-ah!
Object! And when it went bad, you cut these guys loose!
Have you made your decision for Christ?
Where's the juice? No, where's the juice?
My voice is my passport. Verified.
Sneakers!
Yes! Holy shit, 1992 is a fucking great year, is it not?
I saw somebody on Twitter that was like, good discussion on 91, but 92 looks like a shit year. And I was like, what? What?
Now,
What?
I guess if you wanted to be fair about it, there are, I guess like overwhelmingly critic approved movies. It may not be big. I don't know. I think there's quite a few though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you can really say, 92 looks like a shit year. I don't know if you can really say that.
No.
I mean, there are a lot of movies that are like, they're in that zone, like Sneakers. Sneakers is not a movie that was super critically approved, but man, do I love Sneakers. Let's talk about Sneakers right off the bat.
Sneakers, my God. This movie's so fun. We've already talked about it.
We have.
We've already recommended it.
Yes.
It's basically perfects kind of Ocean's 11 heist cool crew stuff way after the original Ocean's 11,
Yes.
but way before Clooney and Soderbergh made it cool. Robert Redford, I love everything about this movie. I was trying to think earlier about like a line that I could quote, because we've already quoted some of them in the previous talk, but there's too many to choose from. I mean, this thing comes on and I'm stuck for 2 hours. I'm not leaving the room.
I don't think there's one moment in Sneakers where I'm sitting there going, I wish I'd get past this part.
Yeah.
Because it's just, and it has that, for me, the greatest scene in that movie is the Redford is in a trunk and he remembers all the sounds, and then he gets David Strathairn as a blind guy to like sort of navigate what kind of sounds he heard while he's in the back of this trunk. And I had never seen anything like that in a movie before I watched Sneakers. And I don't think I've seen anything after it either, except for the bullshit one in Taken 2. Dog barking? He must be there now.
Yeah, he must be. You get the sense that they must have watched Sneakers. Somebody on that movie must have watched Sneakers.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love it because he talks about Redford's like, it sounded like, and he's all sheepish.
Yeah.
Cocktail party? Yeah. And like, Bishop's like, or the blind character is like, all right, well, let's go over there to the reservoir. And somebody said, there's a cocktail party at the reservoir?
You could say that. But what a huge cast this was. I mean,
What a cast.
I mean,
No holes
how
in it.
in the world did they get this many people? They got Robert Redford, they got Sidney Poitier, they got Dan Aykroyd, they got River Phoenix, they got David Strathairn, they've got
James Earl Jones.
Ben Kingsley.
I mean, it goes on and on.
And they all get along perfectly.
Yeah, Merrick McDonald's in it.
Yeah, I mean, you could just tell, like, everybody
Ned
seems to be
Ryerson's
having
in
an
it.
awesome
Yeah,
time.
Stephen Tobolowsky, Ned Ryerson.
Yeah.
Ned Ryerson.
I love the bit in the sushi restaurant where she's trying to get him to say all the words, and eventually, my voice is my passport. Verify me. And they're vacuuming around them, like trying to get rid of him. And like the guy working there is like, he just yells at him. And, I just love everything about this movie. But the cast is outstanding. We didn't even mention probably 3 or 4 other names that would be worth mentioning.
He says, should I call you or should I nudge you?
So gross.
Yes, it is.
That's a terrible pickup line.
But our love of Sneakers is amazing, and and it's going to be weird when we get to the voting for this, right? Because Sneakers, I think, means a lot to both me and Jeremy, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of great movies in 92. Let's go with the biggest box office hit of 92, which was Aladdin.
Mm-hmm. And as we were discussing before taping, because we use tape.
We get reel to reel.
Right.
I watched this movie, freshman year of college, maybe 50 times. My group of friends, if we got together for any reason, somebody put Aladdin on. And I'm not sure why, but we just loved it and became, it got to a point where we could quote the whole thing and we would do impressions. I used to do a little impression of one of the songs in college 20 years ago. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it right now. This is a step. Well, it's not really a step back from Beauty and the Beast.
No.
This is still a beloved movie. I think it's a little less impactful than Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
And as Barrett noted, there's some jokes in this movie that may not pass muster today.
Probably wouldn't.
With the culture of racism.
Yeah, no, it's very unabashedly Islamic, and it'll say stuff like "Praise Allah" or "Allah forbid you if you have any kids." That kind of thing.
This is a tour de force for Robin Williams, though, as a voice actor, and one of those performances probably that you could conceivably wonder why the Academy doesn't recognize stuff like this a lot of times. I know that a lot of times the Academy wants to say, well, it's the full person and you have to see the whole wide range of emotions, but this is a voice acting thing that's amazing. At least get a category for it or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And he's just unhinged. He's his id almost because of that animation. If he's on stage, then he can do his physical mannerisms to have the audience visualize it, but he can literally become, Pinocchio or that kind of thing when he's calling somebody a liar.
Right.
He can become like a U-boat and get him out of the water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like a perfect marriage, and they made it work really, really well.
Your very own camel. Watch out, they spit.
There was some discussion, with Avatar, whether or not Zoe Saldana should get a nomination or something. First off, no. Because that movie's bullshit. But
Just Papa Dragon.
but second off, though, if it was, that's the thing. If it was a good enough performance or whatever, we should have at this point, especially since things are getting more and more digital, we're going to have to probably at some point come up with a voice acting category
or mocap.
Exactly. Something like that.
Called the Andy Serkis
Serkis Award.
I think that man, I would almost rather see him just get a straight up acting award for a mocap performance because he's so goddamn good. But anyway, Robin Williams basically rewrote on the fly this character. He was doing so much ad lib. God, I would love to get a hold of the tapes of all the shit they didn't use.
Are you serious? Yeah.
But he came in and just sort of went, the way Robin Williams does, and the whole movie hinges on this performance.
Yeah.
You get somebody even 10% less manic and it's not going to work at all.
It has to be properly good and fucking manic.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I'm not even sure Jim Carrey could do it.
Well, later on, they'd get Dan Castellaneta, Homer Simpson fame, to do that character. And he can do a pretty good Robin Williams. It's still a pale imitation of Robin Williams. So, but also in 1992, Best Picture went to Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Clint Eastwood, amazing movie.
I love it. Love it so much.
Unforgiven is one of the best movies you'll ever see.
Yeah, and it came out at a great time where the Western had been dead and we hadn't had a super great Western in a long time, and Clint Eastwood at his very best, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and just generally great performances from him and Morgan Freeman, and especially Gene Hackman, who won the Oscar, of course.
Yeah.
But this is just a movie that I remember when it came out, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. It's a Western. I had that kind of feel back then, but when I finally did watch it, oh my God, it's such a good movie. It's so
great.
good.
And it's not quick. It's a Western.
Yeah.
But it's powerful, I think. And sort of Clint Eastwood kind of almost flipping his former Western role. Now he's this grizzled guy who doesn't want to kill or what have you. It's so great. I haven't seen it in a while.
Did Gene Hackman win the Best Supporting Actor award?
Yes.
So he got it from Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, because of A Few Good Men.
Yeah. Because I remember not liking this movie before I saw it because I loved A Few Good Men so much. And Jack Nicholson, that I was angry at it.
Yeah.
But it's an awesome movie.
Well, speaking of A Few Good Men, let's talk about that movie.
Yes.
side story, like a week ago, Aaron Sorkin did an AMA on Reddit. And one of the questions somebody asked him was in all caps, "Did you order the code red?" And Aaron Sorkin replied in all caps, "You're goddamn right I did." And it just made for such a great internet moment. But talk about dialogue.
My God.
People say The West Wing dialogue is great, and it is. Sorkin is a wizard at dialogue, but I still think Few Good Men is maybe his best work in terms of like tightness of the script. Everybody has a chance to shine. All the actors, play off of each other really well. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought Kevin Pollak and Tom Cruise would make such a great pairing?
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought it until I saw it.
Yeah, it was that seemed to be kind of an odd casting choice. Of all of the, you get somebody like Kevin Bacon or Kiefer Sutherland, like in these minor roles, and then you get Kevin Pollak is a pretty highly regarded supporting actor. I mean, he was pretty much a comedian at that point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like an impression guy, and here he is playing off of Nicholson and Tom. Although he doesn't play off of Nicholson hardly at all, but that's one thing that does bother me is that Nicholson, when he's on the stand, Jessup, he says, who's going to guard that wall? You Lieutenant Caffey. And then he points out and he's like, you, Lieutenant Weinberg. And Kevin Pollak hasn't had any dealing with Jessup this whole time except to be like along for the ride. So just like, hey, man, don't bring me in this shit.
This is the first sort of collaboration between Sorkin and Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner again, and the guy, I mean, seriously, I don't know if we ever call him best director of all, one of these best directors of all time kind of guys. I think his track record certainly is one of the best of all time. Mm-hmm. I mean, after this, I think there's one more good movie that he has, and that's another one that he had with Sorkin, which is American President, but
which basically is The West Wing.
The West Wing, yeah. But A Few Good Men, of course, known mostly for that big, huge confrontation at the end and everything. Mm-hmm. I love all the stuff leading up to it, though. Mm-hmm. There's just a sort of a mass confusion going on when he's like, when things went bad, you cut him loose. And then like Kevin Bacon is like sitting there like trying to get him basically arrested because he's accusing a big officer of murder, basically. And all there's the judge is saying stuff, but Tom Cruise is just, he wants the truth, goddammit. And he's like, he's not going to be stopped until he finally gets Nicholson to say what he wants, and I love that scene. It's so intense. You cannot watch that scene just lying on a couch.
No. He's out there without a net. He literally, his colleagues try to talk him out of that before he really goes into it, even though they were talking him into it the whole time before. Now she's like, well, if you're not there, just don't go for it. And he's like, fuck you, man. I'm here.
Yeah.
And that was the only way to do it. He brought in like this kind of dog and pony show, but like that was the only way he was going to get him to admit that, is to piss him the hell off. And questioned his judgment.
And he knew it. He knew it the night before when he does his. He eats breakfast. He knew. All he had to do was push the right buttons. The question is, can he do it?
Yeah.
Because you don't know until you're in it.
Yeah.
And there's that. I love that hesitation because he pauses. Tom Cruise does right before he decides to go for it. And I love that moment.
And Kevin Pollak looks at him like, "Don't do it."
His head. Not working it.
And. But what's also great about that moment is how they've set up his character throughout the whole movie. Is that he's the guy who goes in, let's do this in a day and get these people moving on and all that. He's never been this kind of lawyer before.
Right.
And to be pushed to that point is exhilarating in a movie.
He even says after the first hearing, so this is what the inside of a courtroom looks like.
What else stands out?
The player.
Ooh.
Okay, I love the player for sure.
You gave me an odd look when I said that.
No, because you just jumped right on in and said it, which is fine. I love the player.
When I was putting my notes together for this, when I realized this was the year the player came out, I got really excited because this is a movie I can enjoy on multiple levels. Like I can watch it once and enjoy all of the Hollywood Insider stuff, and I can watch it a second time and enjoy the mystery that's going on. And then I can watch it a third time and just enjoy the humor that's in the background. And it's a perfect movie for a guy like Altman to have made, who loves playing with background audio even while your main characters are doing something. And I just love it. This is where I fell in love with Tim Robbins. It probably is where most people did.
Yeah.
But he pulls this performance off so well.
It's perfect because essentially his character is an asshole studio exec, but he only gets the opportunity to greenlight like 6 movies in a year. So he pisses off a lot of people and all this other type of stuff. And there is an act he commits in this movie that is heinous.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you're still kind of going, but he didn't mean it, you know, but he didn't mean it. And you're still rooting for him to sort of succeed in the end, which is a weird thing because he's a bad guy.
He is.
He's a really bad guy.
But you don't want Lyle Lovett to find him.
You don't
want him to catch on.
By the way, the interplay between Lyle Lovett and Whoopi Goldberg and all these people are just so fantastic. It's like, you know, Whoopi Goldberg sitting there like spinning a tampon in her hand and all this other type of stuff. He's like, this isn't my size. This is slender regular. This is not blah blah blah. It's like, and then he's like, hey, you saw a movie the other day, didn't you? And Lyle Lovett's like, yeah, freaks. And there's a point where they start grilling Tim Robbins on some stuff, and he's you know, the camera gets all close up, he's sweating and all this other type of stuff, and he's like, I will not say anything more without my lawyer present. And everybody's like starts laughing at him and everything, and all of a sudden you hear in the background, one of us. The movie is filled with stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like just nods to other movies, and you know, just if you're a movie fan, The Player is a great place to start when you're talking about movies made about movies.
Yeah. And
right at the beginning, there's an unbroken shot that's trying to out Touch of Evil, basically. Yeah. And Fred Ward is sitting around like all these movies today, cut. that shot in Touch of Evil was the best or whatever. And like he has an assistant who's like, have you ever seen this movie? Like, because everybody talks about Touch of Evil as their unbroken shot, you know, masterclass or whatever. But there's other movies that do it too. And I love how he keeps interpolating. Oh, did you ever see it? No, I never saw that one. But the Touch of Evil one is really good. Yeah, and The Player has all that stuff, like, you know, people pitching The Graduate 2, and yeah. Everybody wants Bruce Willis and Julia Roberts in their movie, and you know, and then that, you know, the one script in there that gets a lot of time is that one, the guy where he's like, the gas comes down, she dies, you know, because that's what happens, that's life, that's blah blah blah, you know, and like people are trying to make this movie palatable to a huge audience. Anyway, yeah, The Player is a great recommend out of this. What else in 92, guys?
Well, there used to be a hipster debate about if Reservoir Dogs was actually better than Pulp Fiction. And, you know, it was cool because everybody loved Pulp Fiction for a time to say, well, if you look at his earlier work, it really holds up better. And it doesn't, but no. Reservoir Dogs is really an amazing and groundbreaking film.
It is, and I love it. I've seen it several times, but I don't think it's as good as Pulp Fiction.
No, it isn't. I mean, and it's good. It's got a lot of great dialogue, and especially the scene where he's remembering a story that didn't actually happen. The way he cuts that and everything is beautiful, because at first he's just being taught the story. Mm-hmm. By the end of it, he's in the bathroom that he's telling the story. And that's probably my favorite part of Reservoir Dogs, is just that whole thing, because, you have to have a good story to get into this group of criminals, or else they're not going to believe you. They're not going to have that. You got to have everything right about that. And, but yeah, Reservoir Dogs is an interesting case. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that's a ripoff of City on Fire. City on Fire actually is the same story. It's about a bunch of jewel thieves and, you know, paranoia and all other type of stuff. And it even has some of the lines from Reservoir Dogs in it. But it's mostly Tarantino infusing his dialogue into this City on Fire whatever. But
because of the nature of his dialogue, the performances that he got, especially from Tim Roth. Yeah. If you're a Tim Roth fan, this should be probably one of your favorite performances of his.
Yeah.
It really goes from start to finish in reverse order almost. In a great arc. And he plays really generally a badass, but a badass that is relatable. Yeah. And really puts himself out there. And the interplay with the performances, the interweaving with this weird background narrative of Stephen Wright and Kay Billy's super songs of the 70s and how those 70s songs interact with it, with Hooked on a Feeling and, of course, the Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel.
Yes.
With no apostrophe.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's awesome. I love it, man. I could watch that stuff all the time.
But now I think Hooked on a Feeling belongs to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
it does.
does.
Yeah.
But Reservoir Dogs is just it's incredibly rich dialogue-wise. It's an always interesting movie. It's very short, too, especially compared to what Tarantino does later. But I love everybody in this. This is a huge cast. It's amazing. Harvey Keitel basically got this movie rolling. If it wasn't for him, may not have been able to do it. He also, I think Tarantino sold True Romance in order to do this movie. But I love everybody in this. Harvey Keitel, Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen's amazing. You said Tim Roth is fantastic. Chris Penn is great. But I just love it. Michael Madsen is like, this is typical Tarantino dialogue we're going to hear for the rest of his career. Basically, it's like, where he's talking about why he shot the girl in the store and everything. If it ain't done what I told him not to do, still be alive. Very like, hey, this is the way things are. I'm going to spell it out for you.
Well, it's also got the great non sequiturs of like Harvey Keitel's in the middle of telling Tim Roth
that's so great.
what to do in case of a bank robbery, and if you got a real cowboy as a manager, then cut off a finger, the little one first, and then he goes on to the thumb, and after he gets done with that, Tim Roth's got kind of this cool but bewildered expression on his face, and Harvey Keitel says, "I'm hungry. Let's get a taco."
Yeah. Something we had never really heard gangsters talk about. It's very like, hey, they do human things too.
Yeah.
Well, and you see that again, and maybe even better in Pulp Fiction with the talk about Royale with cheese and all that stuff.
On their way to do an execution.
Yeah.
What else in 92, guys?
Well, geez, I'm scrolling through this list. I don't know how we're ever going to even finish this conversation. But Glengarry Glen Ross came out this year, according to my notes.
Yep.
We've mentioned it many times. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it right now. But if only for the Alec Baldwin scene, watch it. But hopefully it hooks you beyond that, because I think there's better stuff after that, and from a dramatic standpoint.
It's possibly one of the best years as far as huge casts getting all together. And this is just a who's who of heavy-hitting actors all in one. I'm sure that if you counted all the Oscars these guys have won, like, it'd be in double digits probably, because you have Kevin Spacey, who would go on to win 2. Jack Lemmon won I think 3 Oscars. He may have only won 2, but he won at least 2. You have Al Pacino won his own. Well, he won his only Oscar for Sin of a Woman, which also came out this year. And Alan Arkin won one. And so it's just one of those. It's just everybody in this is amazing. But yeah, we don't need to go too much in detail. We've talked about that one a lot.
Watch it.
Yeah. What else, guys?
Well, you keep saying what else, guys, but I want to let you throw out one if you want.
Okay. Well, Last of the Mohicans.
I will find you.
Yes. Stay alive no matter what it costs.
Also parodied by Seinfeld.
Yep. Last of the Mohicans is a departure for Michael Mann, who had been mostly known for Miami Vice and stuff like Thief and things like that up until this point. So you would never think the guy really behind Miami Vice was like, let's do that James Fenimore Cooper novel or whatever. But this is a really great movie. It may be a better soundtrack though.
It's a great sound. The score is fantastic.
Yes. There are.
I know it.
There are 2. I think there's 2 composers on Last of the Mohicans. One of them died during filming, and I can't remember who's responsible for what. I don't think they ever, wanted to go out and say, "Well, I was the one who wrote this one, the one that you love. I wrote that." But the score for this is amazing.
Speaking of good music in 1992, or huge music, You can't ignore The Bodyguard.
No, you can't ignore it, unfortunately.
Can we just say that much and move on?
Really?
Yeah, the titular track of I Will Always Love You.
That was a huge box office hit.
Yeah, it was a huge box office. The soundtrack was just on the top of the charts.
Mhm.
Every time I would go, actually back in the day, would look at this bullshit, and I would be like, "Oh, The Bodyguard's still number one, huh?" Well,
Actually, I want to talk about songs though, because the Muppet Christmas Carol came out this year.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably my favorite Christmas movie, and one of the reasons it's one of my favorite Muppet movies is that the songs are so great. There's so much. Like most Muppet movies have one or two songs that I'm just like, okay, I can take or leave that one. This one, every single one, I'm singing along. It's in the singing of a street corner choir. It's going home and getting warm by the fire. So I wanted to mention that one. It's fantastic.
Should be in your holiday rotation every year if that's not in there already.
Yeah, I think so. We've talked before that you and I, Chris, we both like Malcolm X.
yes.
Is,
This is Spike Lee. Probably this is the highest he ever aimed as a director.
Yeah.
This is his epic movie. This is something following on the heels of like stuff like JFK and all that. A big 3-hour epic, but every time Malcolm X is on, it's watchable. It's amazingly watchable. If you were to just go to an average person on the street and say, "Hey, I've got this 3-hour movie about Malcolm X. Would you like to see it?" Most people are going to say no, a pass on that. But Spike Lee is such a gifted filmmaker that this movie is just filled with excitement, and just he knows how to make it move, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating movie. It's something that I personally had no idea about with Malcolm X. You only hear a couple of things in the history books about Malcolm X when you're going through school. And when this movie came out and you watch it, it's like, wow, there's so many facets to this person that I had no idea about. Now,
Denzel's electric too.
Oh, Denzel's amazing in this. Because Al Pacino had not won an Oscar before, and they were desperately trying to get him to win one and everything, and because they just didn't give it to him for Glengarry Glen Ross, and because it was probably deserved by Gene Hackman and all that, they give it to him for Sin of a Woman. It's an okay performance. It's a very showy thing. It's whatever. But it also means that Denzel Washington doesn't win for Malcolm X.
That is a real shame.
To me, that's wrong because it's just one of those things where there's a clearly better performance here. And you just wanted to give Pacino his because, he had been nominated 8 times before and didn't win.
Eight times before?
I believe it was 8 times.
Jesus Christ.
And somehow, a way better performance. In fact, out of all this group, Robert Downey Jr. for Chaplin, he was okay. He was good, but he wasn't Denzel Washington. I mean, you look back at the performances that were nominated, it's Denzel all the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby. So anyway, the sexy movies that came out: Basic Instinct, The Crying Game, The Lover, Damage, Poison Ivy, Bad Lieutenant, Consenting Adults.
Wow.
And I remember every single one of those calling to me from the video store wall. Every single one.
I mean, Bad Lieutenant wasn't really a sex movie.
He rapes a nun though, but
it wasn't
in a
like
church.
Yeah, it wasn't like a sexy movie.
No, but that scene scarred me enough to where I categorized it with the rest of these.
Yeah, but Basic Instinct, of course, is the one that we'd want to talk about here.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is this movie possibly underrated?
I don't think so.
You think it's properly rated?
Maybe over time, because Michael Douglas's performance is so over the top.
It
is. It's I got all the marks of a Paul Verhoeven movie.
It does.
And just everything is a little bit just 12% over the top of where it
Why
probably
does that
should
guy
be.
keep getting more credit for his movies as time goes on? Because he did Starship Troopers, right?
And Total Recall.
And Starship Troopers has gotten to a point now where people respect it. But when it came out, it was considered kind of a miss. Even though we knew what it was aiming for, it didn't hit right.
I think the reason is when a movie comes out, it's marketed a certain way. Starship Troopers, for instance, was marketed as a big sci-fi, kill aliens thriller, and it wasn't that. And so what happens is all the people who go see it expecting that are disappointed, and then they say, this is a shitty movie. And so it's almost like the test audience, only on a bigger scale. And then now you have this movie just on shelves basically forever, and people are like, they're going to it on their own terms, and they are watching it without all that baggage, and they're like, oh, this is actually a pretty good movie on like that satirical type of movie about alien invasion and you sort of, especially if you want to like apply it to like a lot of wars that we go into.
And the ones that have read the book and they'll come back to it. Just
So I mean that's why that type of stuff happens. Like RoboCop was a huge hit because it was a fucking cop blowing away people and stuff. But then when people actually started sitting down and watching that a little bit more critically, like, oh, there's a lot of satire in this too. There's a lot of stuff that I can sort of latch onto as this is more than just what is being presented to me. And
I think that's part of it. I think Verhoeven does so much satire that's part of what we're missing the first time around with his movie. It feels like it happens to him more than most directors.
Yeah, and now Basic Instinct I do not believe has that. I mean, it is over the top, but I don't know. I've always enjoyed the mystery of it, even though it is. I mean, there's so much ridiculous in it.
Yeah,
so much ridiculous. We send this movie, and it was just like so many things in it that just don't. I mean, you would never have this. You would have to have this perfect set of circumstances for this kind of environment to exist in any kind of investigation going on, and that's why everything's so ridiculous in it. But I don't think it. Yeah, I think it might be properly rated, but sometimes I think people are just like, that's not. It's just a sex movie.
But it was huge. And there were 7 quote sex movies that came out this year, but nothing. Maybe it was the power of Sharon Stone's vagina.
It could be,
but I mean, nothing was on the scale of how culturally impactful this movie was.
Well, and she was. I don't think it was her because maybe it was just her nudity, but she was relatively unknown to the masses at this point. This is what put her on the map.
She was in Total Recall briefly, so that's how she and Verhoeven sort of like got together on this, but. Yeah, she wasn't very well known at all. I remember seeing the trailers and I was like, who's that? I'm 15.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And this movie was marketed as all about sex, crime, mystery. I think I've told this story before, but like I went to a religious university and opening night, sold out show. There were so many students from this Christian college. They sang the goddamn alma mater, which of course got back to the school and got them in trouble. But before the movie started, someone led them in singing, and it's Basic Instinct. And then that first scene comes on where they're fucking in that bed, and you're just like, I will never forget when I finally caught. I didn't even see this at that point. I wasn't there. I rented it later, and that first scene shocked the crap out of me.
Yeah,
it was for its time. It was graphic as hell.
Yeah, it really does explore some real graphic sexuality and bisexuality and and kind of like the S&M culture that was just kind of up and coming, so no pun intended. But I think that part of it was really fascinating to me, and the mystery part of it was again kind of ridiculous, but it was a fun movie nonetheless.
Another tremendous hit in 1992 is A League of Their Own.
I just saw that one on my list.
Yeah,
this is a movie that I don't like as much as most people do.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't dislike it. But it's fairly forgettable for me. And I wonder if it just means I'm sexist and I don't like women playing baseball.
No,
that was a joke.
Maybe.
I don't think it has anything to do with that. Just it's kind of like Ghostbusters. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not a whatever. I haven't seen this movie in forever. I remember enjoying it though, and I think Tom Hanks was really good in it, and I love Gina Davis. You talk about a long-time crush was Gina Davis. And of course, it's got John Lovitz is hilarious in it. And that's something that I know Jeremy and I always say is this. Anytime somebody adds something to a deal, we go, well, this would be more, wouldn't it? But A League of Their Own is a huge hit, and I mean I do remember it being pretty good. Madonna kind of sort of takes a step back in this one and plays character actress for once. She's like only kind of in the background. This is Rosie O'Donnell before everybody started hating Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, no, she almost like disappears into this movie. You don't really realize that she's there, but there are some really touching moments in this because they're playing baseball because all the guys are away at war in World War II, and when you get a death notice or something like that, they deliver it to the clubhouse, and Tom Hanks has to take it and like shuffle over and give it to the woman, and who's then comforted by her teammates. And it's really, really like it'll bring a tear to your eye.
Ooh.
It does for me, at least.
Yeah. Also, 1992 brought us Wayne's World.
Wayne's World. I was just going to bring that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wayne's World's one of my favorite comedies.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, now I have a lot of favorite comedies.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't probably make the like top 20 or anything.
Well, Wayne's
like that.
World is the only reason that they still continue to make SNL skit-based movies.
Yeah.
Because this was the only one that really did much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was a huge hit. It was the 8th biggest hit of 1992. Made over $100 million. But Wayne's World was one of the first movies I had seen in a long time that wasn't afraid to be ridiculous about a lot of things. And it does break the fourth wall a lot, but the part where they're like sitting there saying they'll bow to no sponsor while they're sitting there eating Pizza Hut Doritos and all sort of stuff. I love that. And this is a sort of a long track of Rob Lowe appearing in Saturday Night Live alum movies as the villain of this. It's just one of those movies. It's ridiculous and it's fun, and I can watch it anytime. So
yeah, it's wacky. It's great, and those performances are indelible. I mean, Dana Carvey and Mike Myers were really at their peak and very quotable and very impersonable and all that stuff.
Yeah,
totally. I'm running out of decent ones or ones that will contend, but I did want to mention Army of Darkness.
Okay, so I am pretty sure that Army of Darkness came out in 93, but it had like some screenings in 92. But we can talk about it here since it does say it's 1992 on the IMDb, I think. So yeah, let's go for it.
Well, it was just all I wanted to say was it was my introduction to Bruce Campbell. I hadn't seen any of the Evil Dead movies.
Same here.
And it was the combination of macho comic horror was something I hadn't really seen a lot of.
Yeah.
And the one-liners he rips off, and just not taking any of it so seriously. I fell in love with that movie, and because of it, I became a Bruce Campbell fan. I went back and watched the other Evil Dead movies, and anyway, I like that movie.
Yeah.
This is my boomstick.
When you want to shop smart, shop S-Mart.
You got that?
This movie has the part that I always loved in it was after he's fighting that witch or whatever and everything, and she's fallen dead, and he goes over and says, "It's a trick. Get an axe." I always love that. But Army of Darkness, yeah. I mean, if you haven't gotten into Evil Dead or whatever, it's actually a great starter for Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Because that's how I got into those movies. But yeah, Army of Darkness, great. Other stuff that's popping out here. Under Siege. This is Die Hard on a boat, basically. I think that's how they pitched it. Andrew Davis, who would go on to do The Fugitive the next year, teaming with Tommy Lee Jones for the first time also. And Tommy Lee Jones is of course the villain of this movie. Steven Seagal in probably his first like real act. Like everything before this was like above the law, hard to kill, these 3-word, something to something, and it also had Erica Laniak jumping out of a cake, Playboy Bunny. That if we're talking about sex, that was about as amazing for a 15-year-old kid to see as anything. But no, Under Siege is actually pretty good. Pretty good action movie.
Yeah.
It's probably the best Steven Seagal movie you could ever run into. Pretty good. Another action movie, Patriot Games.
Yeah.
This is Harrison Ford taking over as Jack Ryan.
And I didn't realize until we were prepping for this how close on the heels of Hunt for Red October this movie came.
Yeah.
My memory had a bigger gap between the two.
I think I did too.
Yeah. Sean Bean is in this.
Yeah.
Don't remember if he dies, but I'm guessing he does.
He probably does.
He almost always does.
That's how he built his career.
The Harrison Ford Jack Ryan is a completely different animal from the Alec Baldwin Jack Ryan, and I enjoy it, but not as much.
Right. This is, I would say, of all the Jack Ryans, this is the least one. Clear and Present Danger is actually a really good one that comes out later, but yeah, Patriot Games is pretty far down there. It was a decent hit, though, back in 92. Another one, Francis Ford Coppola comes back into the fray with Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is an insane Dracula movie. Headed by Gary Oldman, again, who is doing amazing work and how somehow has never been nominated except for one time in his life. But this is a movie that has been parodied and spoofed beyond belief. Like, it's one of the biggest ones I think that's ever been. Simpsons did one. You had what else? This is just insane.
Why did Coppola do this movie? Why did he do this movie? Why did he do this Dracula? It doesn't make sense to me. The colors are beautiful. The set pieces are great. The performance by Gary Oldman, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because the rest of them
Everybody
are bullshit.
else. Yeah.
Canoe gets on there trying to do a fucking British accent.
Yep.
Winona gets on there trying to do a British accent. She kind of
Anthony Hopkins tries to do a
fuck that
British
guy.
accent.
Fucking Van Helsing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this movie is a piece of fucking garbage, but it is a beautiful piece of garbage.
It is, isn't
and
it?
I don't know why Francis Ford Coppola decided to do this fucking movie.
It could be just, it could be ego, man. It could be like, hey, let's try to do this big movie. Could be money. Could be just that he just needed the money. Who knows?
I guess so.
But it's an interesting little blip in 1992. I almost recommend watching Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, yeah,
just because
I've got
of
it
how
on the DVR right now.
insane it is. Also coming out in 92, White Men Can't Jump.
Mm-hmm.
The first of, I guess, a couple of team ups with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. White Men Can't Jump is Ron Shelton again. He's not doing exactly Bull Durham Tin Cup type of work there, but it's a decent movie.
Mm-hmm.
White Men Can't
That
Jump.
movie was everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know why, but I feel like that movie made $400 million, even though it didn't. But that's how much people were talking about it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it. Well, let's see. I have it actually here. It was the 16th most popular movie of '92. Made about $70-something million. Also coming out in 1992, The Crying Game.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this. This was the first movie I ever saw at our local Belcourt Theater.
Oh wow.
And had no idea what the surprise was, and I won't reveal it here, even though it's 20-something fucking years old. But I was not prepared for it. I was not prepared for the bomb on this. I think nowadays I might be prepared for a bomb like this. This is
because this movie came out and set that kind of thing in motion.
Yeah,
like no one was prepared.
No.
No one saw that coming.
But that's a weird movie, right? Like, it starts off with all this IRA, like, terrorist type stuff. It's like this gripping military thriller type movie, and then it turns into this love story.
Yeah.
Right after that, and it's just an unusual movie. It's worth watching just for that. I know there's a few more that I want to mention before we go on. I know that we've gone long.
Is Encino Man on there?
Encino Man is not. You can go ahead and talk about it.
The juice.
Hey, I just wanted an opportunity to say.
Well,
and
it's just kind of like like Batman Returns, which is that was such a disappointing Batman. Such a disappointing Batman. Alien 3 sort of introduces us to David Fincher, although not the right way.
And really has that indelible image of Sigourney Weaver with her head shaved and the alien getting right up on her face, which is a really terrifying image.
Yes, it is.
In a series full of terrifying images.
My Cousin Vinny came out in 1992. Another great one.
Yes. Any other year, that would be in my top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. But My Cousin Vinny, funny movie. A River Runs Through It. Redford directing Brad Pitt and
coming off of his Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, A River Run Through It. By the way, great movie.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. I remember when it came out, it seemed like everybody was on that movie. Now nobody ever talks about it.
Another movie nobody ever talks about is Leap of Faith.
There you go.
Steve Martin.
Go for it.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Okay. I like it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't think it's great, but it's totally engaging and watchable. It's a traveling fraud preacher.
Yeah.
And he sets up a big tent and does revival for a week, gets a bunch of offerings, and then moves out of town and does it again. But the town he's come to at the start of this movie is in severe drought. And he meets this woman that he starts sort of half romancing. And slowly over time, he begins to maybe regret bilking all these people out of their money. There's a kid who's crippled who ends up coming to try and get healed at the service. And Liam Neeson is the guy who lives in town who's trying to expose Steve Martin as a fraud. And you see the back workings. Like, one of the things I love most about the movie is during the revival services, because you see the guy in the van who's looking at all the cameras, and they have all have earpieces, and they know exactly who to send him to, and they'll say, okay, this woman, they've done the research, this woman such and such, yada yada, and Steve Martin will go, I understand you're having hip trouble. Praise the Lord. And it really has a lot to say about the issues of faith, I think. And I don't really want to ruin the movie, but it's not really a spoiler to say that by the end, I think many of those characters come to believe in God, even though they didn't before the movie started.
I forgot all about that movie, and I remember really, really liking it.
Yeah,
for the
I like
same
it a
reasons.
lot. Yeah, it's got Lucas Haas, Deborah Winger. It's a good cast, and I recommend it.
Also
call.
coming out in 92 was Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Mm.
which was Joss Whedon writing the script and somebody else directing it and everything. The movie is not good at all.
No.
It holds up, though, better than you think. When I was watching this recently, I was texting Chris, you know what, Paul Rubens actually does pretty well in this movie, and like Rutger Hauer is pretty good in this, and like I think Luke Perry, his performance holds up.
Yeah.
No, it's not that good, but
not-
it does better than you think.
But as far as cultural impact goes, it gets Joss Whedon to do this as a TV series, and it becomes a historical TV series at that point.
Talking about that point, we got El Mariachi this year, didn't we?
I think we did. Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So in terms of cultural impact, everything that's come from him since, of course, he pseudo kind of remakes this movie when he does Desperado with Antonio Banderas. But I recommend El Mariachi, especially if you watch it knowing how little money they spent making that movie.
And I've heard everything on this. Like the first number I heard was $7,000 it took to make El Mariachi. And then it was like $3,000. Like these gets keep lower and lower every time the years go by. But yeah, 1992 is kind of a nice little I guess, pivoting point for independent movies, because Tarantino, Rodriguez, and all that. That's why you get later on, you get Four Rooms, where they got like Tarantino, Rodriguez, Allison Anders, and Alexander Rockwell to all do one movie, an anthology movie or whatever.
And it's terrible.
Oh, yeah. Not good. Although it has its moments. We'll get to that. 1992 also, Singles came out, a movie that Barrett hates and I love.
I love it.
And
second best soundtrack of the 90s, I would say.
You like that Paul Westerberg?
I do. It's got everybody. It's got everybody from the Seattle Sound, and then for whatever reason, there's a Smashing Pumpkins song in there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and Paul Westerberg is from the Midwest too. So, but no, it's great. The soundtrack is absolutely must have, must listen. And I went back and rewatched it, and there are a lot of funny moments in there, but I don't think the movie holds up all that good.
All right, that's fair enough.
And so after that, I don't think there's much. We'll probably forgotten something again, but that's about it. Let's do our voting.
Okay, so the order today is Chris, Barrett, and Jeremy.
Oh, me first, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've actually decided on this yet. This is a really, really amazing year. But I think as far as just general quality, overall solid amazingness and everything, I'm going to have to give this to Unforgiven.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I think as far as just a movie you can really sink your teeth into, performances, writing, directing, and everything, it's hard to beat this, although I would have to say there's probably a 1B, 1C, and 1D in this year. So it'll be interesting to see how far we go on this, because I have plenty more that I can talk about.
Yeah,
So,
I'm curious.
Well, I'm going to go with A Few Good Men.
yeah.
For everything
We're
that
not
we
going to
said.
go very far.
Yeah.
Okay.
The dialogue, the performances, Jack fucking Nicholson.
You want
one
to
of his
talk about
top
cultural
3.
impact.
Yeah.
I mean, You Can't Handle the Truth has been...
Yeah. It's endured for until now. So.
Yeah, and Sideshow Bob's parody of it is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you
you
know, truth handler, you.
I deride your truth handling
I
abilities.
deride your truth handling
You
ability.
could make an argument that this is his most famous performance, I would say The Shining is probably his most famous performance, but this is right up there.
I think this is his most famous performance. The Shining, and even the one about the incest. Chinatown.
That's how you describe Chinatown.
Am I
The
wrong?
movie Chinatown. Only about incest. Let's forget about the drought in California
I'm
and the
sorry.
mystery and all that.
That's what I remember most.
It goes to show why it's a bad descriptor, because I was like, the incest movie. Was he in that Angels and Insects movie?
So I think this is his most famous performance. Average American out on the street, name a Jack Nicholson movie. They're either going to say maybe the Joker from Batman.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to say this, and it's so quotable. And it's not just that scene. It's not just him.
Oh, yeah,
Almost every character has a quotable, funny line at some point. Between the cultural impact and the quality, like you said earlier about, I think, a different movie, there's no wasted scenes here.
Mhm.
There's no moment in this movie where you're like, hurry it up and get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So we're done.
Yeah, A Few Good Men is the winner on this one.
Sweet. We
yeah,
win.
I have no problem with that, though. I mean, that would have been my next pick.
Was that 1B?
Yeah.
Or 1A?
What would
whatever?
your 1B have been?
I was going to go with Reservoir Dogs, actually.
I was going to
Yeah.
hit you with Sneakers.
Yeah, I figured
I would've-
that's number 3 for me.
I would probably gone through, if we went through multiple rounds, would have been Reservoir
taken-
Dogs, would have been Sneakers.
Yeah. It would have taken a lot of like trigonometry and like
Yeah.
calculus and
Yeah.
solving for F and X.
There would have
and
been
all
a 10-minute blank spot in the podcast where we're just thinking
that. You hear the
that
sound
you
of
didn't cut
typewriters.
out. Yeah,
like adding machines.
they're like, hey guys, be sure to keep listening. We're just thinking right now. We knew we could cut it out, but we said fuck it. But that's it. I mean, I think that's a good choice, guys. I'm not opposed to A Few Good Men, obviously. So now we're going to be talking about fights in movies that we really, really think are best.
At my signal, unleash hell.
He said to hit him until he gave the signal to stop.
How much can you know about yourself? You've never been in a fight.
To the death.
No, to the pain.
I don't think I'm quite familiar with that phrase.
Some really good fights in film. We've narrowed it down to a few categories, like the epic battle, thinking, like people on horses and, send in the cavalry and all that, and just best fist fights and just a few there, just to name a few. But where do we want to start on this, guys?
Why don't we start at the top with large scale or epic fights?
Okay. Go. Why don't you go first on that?
Okay, I've got, obviously this brings to mind maybe like Lord of the Rings, which may come up later on, or like Braveheart, things like that. But one of my favorite ones that was fairly recently was on Edge of Tomorrow.
That's a good one.
Oh, good call.
And it's really unique in the fact that in the movie, it's Tom Cruise just dropping into a crazy nutso battle zone of which he has really no idea how to interact with. And it really has all of the terror as something like Saving Private Ryan when they're storming the beach in Normandy. He has to get used to this exoskeleton suit. He's got to navigate things falling out of the sky, his ship going down as he's supposed to drop into the battle and everything. He's never really interacted with these beings that he's fighting, and he doesn't know his comrades either. So like he's dropping into a world that is really a proxy for us, because this is the first time that we've seen it too, and the scale and the scope of it and the way that it's done is just awesome. You have to check it out.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned my answer, the Saving Private Ryan Normandy Beach scene, which is a little obvious, but it's so good.
Yeah.
I can't not mention it. It puts you in that moment in I think the best way a movie could possibly put you in that moment. And other than living through it, this is as close to what it might feel like. And it's harrowing.
It's horrible.
And it's terrifying, and it sets the stage for the entire rest of the movie's emotional payoffs. And even though it's a little obvious, I went with the Saving Private Ryan.
Oh,
That's a
well,
great one.
yeah, but I mean,
has to be there.
here's the thing though. It's obvious, but it's obvious for a reason.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan's opening scene is so amazing, and in the hands of a less gifted director than Spielberg, you may have had just some everyday D-Day battle on that. Not on this one. You you feel as I don't think any of us who have never been in combat can ever really say what combat is like.
Sure.
But that is as close, I think, as you can get to being in it without ever being in it, even though the real thing is probably 400 times more horrifying.
We're not saying it's not.
I just want to make that clear so that people don't think, well, you won't know unless there's a bullet whizzing by your head.
Yeah.
I just want to get that out of the way. I'm gonna go with, because you did mention Lord of the Rings, the Helm's Deep battle is pretty amazing. It's just one of the ways that they know it's coming for so long, and they have to prepare for it like it's happening like immediately.
Yeah.
Like they've known for months, and they get everybody set up and everything, and like it's just one of those things where I love how it starts too, because somebody accidentally
shoots an arrow.
Yeah, except it's not as ridiculous as it is in X-Men Apocalypse. When
Oh
they got
my God!
But because the guy he's nervous, you can see he's just kind of like and he literally just lets it go, and it just starts the whole thing. And then as the end, you start getting in the individual things and everything with Gimli and with Aragorn and Orlando Bloom's Legolas's character.
Legolas.
You get all those individual things where Legolas and Gimli are like trying to outkill each other, and you have that scene where Gimli says, "Toss me," and Aragorn looks down and he's like, what? just toss me. There's a lot. It's amazing when you can get a battle that big and you can still insert some of that kind of humor into it as well.
Yeah.
It's when Peter Jackson had sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into Lord of the Rings trilogy as opposed to what he did with Hobbit.
Yeah, totally. And I love the movements almost. If you think of this battle like a piece of orchestration, it has lulls and peaks, and there are waves of helpers and waves of other enemies, and of course Gandalf, the big one coming over the ridge at the end. It just pulls all the right strings, especially when Aragorn convinces the king to ride out and fight with his last breath. Think it's going to be their last breath. Just love it so much. And that was actually on my list, so I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. All right. So that was sort of a taste of the large scale army ones. How about best hand-to-hand fist fights?
Ooh.
Okay. So I took this to be best hand-to-hand fight, and it could be fist fights or it could be just fights.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going against the norm because there's a billion amazing fist fights just from like the Bourne movies alone.
Yeah.
From a ton of action movies. So I actually went with the Wesley and Inigo Montoya scene from Princess Bride because it's mano a mano, and it's basically, and it is to the death. I mean, they say this is what's going to happen. You seem like a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem like a decent fellow. I hate to die. And they have the choreography is both entertaining and fairly complex, and the whole switch up of I am not left-handed, and the same thing with the other thing, and just the whole environment that they're in, and it's just so much fun to watch the repartee and the physical attributes and everything, and it's really fun. It's one of my favorite like one-on-one fights, even though certainly it's not as visceral as some of the other ones.
Speaking of visceral, I'm choosing the kitchen scene from Raid 2.
Mm-hmm.
He faces off with basically the head henchman, and they use little curly knives in this scene. They destroy the fuck out of a kitchen, by the way, if you want to see damage done to a commercial kitchen. But what I love about this fight, in addition to all the choreography, because it's outstanding, these guys can really do most of this stuff, but it's so long. And there's moments where they stand up and they both just wheeze and take big breaths before they put their fists up again to go at it. And you really get the sense that they're so equally matched that your hero might not actually make it out of this one. Some of the fights leading up to this, like in the hallway when he takes out the baseball bat guy, I love that fight too. But you're not as worried about him there. But he gets cut. He suffers real damage. I just love it so
much. And that's really the last fight
it is.
in that movie.
It really is. And so it needed to be that big. But if I'm going to choose one, I'm going to say that. I also wanted to say Ip Man with Donnie Yen, but I think I found a way to squeeze that into another one of the categories.
Nice.
I'm gonna stay on the Raid 2 here.
Do it. Nice. Do it.
Because the Raid 2 is just amazingness embodied into a movie. The one that is the prison fight in the same movie is amazing to me. And the thing about it is that this is a melee that probably, if it was an American movie, would be nothing but a million cuts all together. We don't know what's going on. We just see cuts of people doing things and kicking ass and everything like that. This one is out in the middle of this muddy prison yard, and our main guy is fending for himself, but so is a whole bunch of other people in this thing. But while this melee is going on, the camera roves around, and it is unbroken several times. And that's why it's so immediate and amazing. It's a low-angle shot of all these people in a fight, and there's one scene where it just sits there and just goes through the entire prison yard, ending up following two guys climbing up a fence and like getting shot by a guard that's just standing up there. And it's just it's one of those things, like the visuals of it are amazing. Everybody's just muddy as fuck. And then there's just the beating ass part of it, which is just like all that amazing, like, how do you bend your leg that way type of fighting and everything, where they're just you see these guys like it's like you're controlling somebody on Street Fighter 2 or whatever. It's like low kick, and you're like this guy's gonna have to succumb to some point. His shin has got to be broken. But like it's just one of those things that it gets you into this fight in such a great way without having to cut a billion times. Now it cuts quite a bit, but it's not like sitting there like every punch or every like little thing. Like, we've got to show this. We've got to get content in this movie. Yeah, if you haven't guessed already, you need to go watch The Raid 2.
And it's not just just the action. What you touched on there is that the camera work and the choices they make and where to put it. That's what makes this movie great. The action is great, but without the camera work that's stunning and innovative, this movie would not be so buzzed about by me, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it, the director, but even with that muddy mess in the middle of a fight, you can identify everybody that's important in
for the
that
most
scene.
part. Yeah, you really can.
And that's insane. You wouldn't be able to do that with like the biggest movie stars on the planet with a lot of American films. You know? Unless they're wearing like some sort of bright, superhero costume or something.
And even then, it's in the mud, so it's like they did wear bright something. It would they would find a way to lose them in the battle, or and you'd probably see like, oh, there's one shot of him beating ass, and then it would go and show a bunch of people like some shaky cam mess of some sort, and then come back to him later. Kind of like a lot of these Marvel movies do in their big fight scenes, sorry to say, but that's what they would do. It's just one of those, you can't top The Raid 2 as far as action scenes are concerned.
You really can't.
Another one of the topics, one versus many.
This is intriguing.
Yeah, I'll start off with it. And I'm cheating a little bit because it's not one scene necessarily, but it's one movie, and that's First Blood. And we've said this before. I just want to reiterate. This is not the Rambo that everybody has gotten used to over time in various sequels and things like that, where he's going into Vietnam and like, busting up some Viet Cong people and rescuing POWs. This is actually John Rambo, a POW, former POW, that is just kind of living his life and hiking in the Pacific Northwest, and through no fault of his own gets arrested for being a vagrant. And the police department of the sheriff's office have a vendetta against him, and circumstances accelerate that. But it ends up being John Rambo out in the forest in the Pacific Northwest, basically fighting against this whole group of police officers. And he does it really smartly, and he does it by being innovative. He doesn't do it by having the biggest muscles and having the biggest hand cannon on there. He just does it really, really well, and it's fun to watch each individual way that he catches and basically eliminates the threats.
We've talked about this movie a couple of times before, but it was shocking to me because I was too young to watch Rambo movies back in the 80s when they came out and everything. So when I finally got so I knew Rambo as the guy who just blew away a whole bunch of people all the time, and that's what he did. Even UHF, which I saw before any Rambo movie, has a big Rambo scene in it where he's like getting shot at close range by millions of people and they're missing, and he's just calmly pulling out bows and arrows and stuff like that. And so I knew Rambo is this one thing. When you go and watch First Blood, you're like, whoa, this is a completely different movie than I was suspecting.
Yeah.
And it is very well done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going off my list, so I may steal yours, and I apologize in advance.
Go for it.
But I'm going to go with the Kingsman, the church scene in Kentucky.
Oh my God.
Where Lancelot is being mind controlled basically by Sam Jackson's bullshit social media app. And kills 150 people in a span of 3 minutes. It's shot in such a way. This is a very visceral experience. Mm-hmm. It's mayhem.
Yes.
And I love this scene way more than I love the movie. I like the movie, but this scene, it almost feels like something I might see from the Raid 2 director in terms of how the camera keeps me focused on the main character, but still shows me other stuff going on around him. And it's just manic. It'll make you anxious probably. But I just love it. I love it so much.
Thank God it's happening to a whole bunch of the Westboro church type people.
Yeah.
Thank goodness they really had to make these people terrible people.
Yeah, because if it was at a regular church or if it was, somewhere else where there's a bunch of innocent people and everything, then it would be you would paint this scene a whole different way. But it is kind of fun seeing all of them getting their just asses kicked, and it's a bloody scene.
I was going to say it's hard R, that scene right there.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's a good one because it is shot in such a way it is fun. Like even with all the blood and everything, you can actually sit there and laugh at it.
Yeah, it's funny.
But My One versus Many isn't so much a fight scene, even though there are fights in it. But in Ong Bak, you've seen this, right?
Yeah, I had a scene from that on my list. I just chose to go with Kingsman.
There is another one. I think you're the one you're pointing at is going to be Ong Bak 2, right?
Through the hotel.
Yeah. But in Ong Bak, there's a part where there's like a gang of people who are after Tony Jaa in this, and he has to navigate this town now. If we were CinemaSinsing this, it's like the town decided to suddenly become like what is it? The contraption,
a Rube Goldberg?
A Rube Goldberg contraption, just for this fight scene or this chase scene and everything. Because it's like he jumps through this, and this guy starts walking across, and he jumps over that, and then there's somebody carrying this mesh of some sort where there's a hole in it, and he jumps in between that. That said, it's fucking exhilarating.
Oh, yeah.
It's so really amazing, the way he goes through all this and jumps through all these obstacles. And there is a point where he gets trapped. He's on a table, and there's people who come in, run in and everything, and he has to still beat their ass somehow. And again, it's one of those scenes where you sit there and go, how does your leg bend that way? It's just one of those things where he'll just be sitting there on the table, and his leg will just go behind his head and kick somebody in the face. And this isn't a stunt guy either. This is the guy doing it.
Oh yeah.
That scene lasts for about 5 to 10 minutes. It's one of these it's a long scene, but you will never be bored during it the entire time. He's got other friends who are getting chased in this too, but it's mostly him that you care about, and you don't care about the other guy. And just all the stuff there, the jumping and the going underneath. There's actually a part in there where you see him jumping over cars a lot, which is amazing. But then there's one where he actually slides underneath a car, and there's so many scenes that are so amazing in it. They show you 3 different angles of him doing it.
Oh, really?
And it's the same one. It's like they had to have set 3 cameras up to do it and everything. It's just him going under, and you see, he got under. And then it's the next shot is him, another angle of him doing it. Because this is amazing enough to do that. And there's a point where he gets trapped behind a whole bunch of guys. And he looks around, and all of a sudden he jumps up, he gets on somebody's shoulder and he runs across all of their shoulders and gets behind them and runs away. There's so many things in that scene. Well, that movie the movie is kind of like Bloodsport in mostly because it's a lot of underground fighting type stuff and everything. But that right there is one of those. It's just tour de force, like one against many scenes. It's great.
Awesome.
Okay. Improvisational fights. Ones where people have found objects on the ground, and it makes sense. Maybe not on the ground, maybe just in their general area that they use in the fight. That you don't have to just use your fist sometimes. Sometimes you can
subtitle this the Jason Bourne category.
The Jason Bourne category, where either he gets a teapot or a pen or
a book,
or something like that to assist in the fight when the things look the most dire. Barrett, what is yours?
I could also name this the Jackie Chan Award.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Actually, it's probably better suited.
Yep. Well, because nobody uses props. I'm sure there may be somebody out there that does this since he really pioneered it, but really nobody uses props better in a fight scene than Jackie Chan, particularly in his prime.
Yeah, you're right.
And so the scene that I immediately thought of when you think about improvisational is Rumble in the Bronx. And so he's going against this biker gang that is just stereotypes of bikers. But it takes place in like this appliance warehouse.
Yep.
Where there's refrigerators and there's microwaves and there's like, it's like if you're old enough to remember service merchandise, this was service merchandise.
Oh yeah.
It's stockroom basically. And it's all behind like wooden slats and everything. And the use of space, I could have done a couple of Jackie Chan films in this, but the use of space and the use of those refrigerators and like putting somebody in there and then opening the door and hitting somebody else and then opening the freezer door and hitting somebody else and then punching him and then throwing back into the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And the skis and the stuff that he uses, which has been practiced and rehearsed and just drilled into everybody's head 9,000 times before they get the take that they need. And of course, Jackie Chan does all of his own stunts. Ended up, I think, breaking his ankle doing a stunt in this film. But it's an awesome scene. You can find it on YouTube, but you should watch the whole movie, not for the acting. It's certainly a bad movie, but the fights are just awesome. And he uses props just amazingly.
I chose to go with Ip Man here, Donnie Yen. This is the guy who would, in real life, go on to train Bruce Lee. And in this movie, the first one is the only one I would wholeheartedly endorse. The fight scenes are great in all of them. But basically, this gang comes in, and they actually come into his house, and his kid's even in the room. And it's tense for a couple seconds, and then he starts fighting with the gang leader. And at one point, the gang leader pulls out this huge, like, curved Aladdin sword or whatever. And so Donnie Yen picks up this really long feather duster and basically beats his ass. And, like, he uses it in so many different ways. Slap him on the side of the head, or he'll poke him to actually move him. And he just uses the tensile strength, the bending of the feather duster stick to, it's just amazing. He didn't need a sword. He just needed a feather duster. And if you don't want to watch the whole movie, unlike Rumble in the Bronx, the whole movie's good. And there's great fights all throughout. But this fight in his own home with the feather duster, go look it up on YouTube because it's impressive as hell. And he's so calm. One of the reasons I like Donnie Yen is that it looks like he's never trying.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, he's just like you're just a flea to him, and he's just going to stand and wait. And he does a lot of awesome, like, Muhammad Ali type head dodging in this scene where he's winning the fight just by staying an inch out of reach of the guy's sword. It's really good stuff.
So that's the opposite of Jackie Chan, because he makes it look like he's working.
Oh yeah. Well, because he is. You know what I mean? Like he hurts himself every movie, right? Basically, because he's so committed to doing his own stunts. And this is a choreographed fight scene.
Yeah.
But Donnie Yen is still a badass when it comes to kung fu. I'm really excited about him in Rogue One.
Yeah. Now, I think, Barrett, you had already said something about Rumble in the Bronx when we were exchanging ideas on this, but that was the one I thought of immediately. The Rumble in the Bronx thing with him using the refrigerator doors and all that other stuff. So, and that's really a fight that we could classify under a lot of the categories we've come up with.
Yeah,
like
one
versus many. It could be a humorous fight. It could be all these different things. I think ultimately I'm just going to have to come up with a humorous improvisational scene, and that's a Naked Gun 2.5 when they're in the bathroom and like Leslie Nielsen picks up a hair dryer and like starts blowing it in the face of the bad guy, and they just keep on finding all this stuff in the bathroom to like finally ending with the bad guy throwing a towel in his face and him going, "Oh!"
That is nice.
So that's an improvisational one, but it's also a humorous one. We'll get to that in a moment. But Rumble in the Bronx is one of those things. Jackie Chan, I don't think this is what translated later on when he became an American star, because Rumble in the Bronx was whatever. Was it a police story or
no? It wasn't a police story,
but it was
a separate one.
One of those named a different thing. It's definitely not the Bronx that they're going around fighting in and everything. It's when he did his older movies, he was able to do all that stuff, like do his own stunts. When he got into Rush Hour and all that other type of stuff, he didn't. That's when American insurance companies and stuff said, "Nope, you're not gonna be doing that stuff by yourself. We're gonna have a stunt man," which is why they suck generally. A lot of times these action movies.
This, I'll do an honorable mention real quick on this one because I don't know if it's on your list anywhere else. But if we're talking Jackie Chan, then the only reason to see this police story movie called First Strike,
that was on my list, but it was the category we just did. So
okay, yeah, I mean. He uses a ladder, and not just like a step ladder. He uses like probably like a 12-foot, 18-foot ladder to fight off this group of guys, and it is incredible.
It is.
It is still incredible.
I can watch that scene and still not fathom how a person could come up with that shit.
Yeah.
Like how would you even think of some of the ways to move that ladder? Oh God, it's phenomenal.
It's upside down. It's horizontal. He's in it. He's flipping it all over.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Really, all these fights, like especially in the Asian cinema and everything, it's like chess.
Yeah,
isn't it? Like the moves that they're making in this thing are things that we would never, even if we knew how to fight, we wouldn't know how to do this, because there's stuff like, especially like in Ong Bak, when he's fighting one of these guys in one of the tournament fights or whatever, there's a point where he swings and misses at this one guy, takes another approach from another angle right after that. Guy dodges it, but the one thing that the guy didn't know to dodge was this guy's leg kicking over, like going over his shoulder and into his face and everything. It's one of those things where it's like you feel like the fighter is so good because well, I'm going to try a bunch of stuff that might fail, but it's not going to hurt me. And then I'm going to keep on coming at you with surprises until something finally lands. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, there's got to be some sort of almost chess-like intelligence when it comes to that type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. The next one we have on here, I believe, is the humorous ones. The humorous fights. Ones that are specifically made to make you laugh because they are so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Barrett?
There's no better example of this to me, especially in the last few years, than the Anchorman melee.
Yes.
Talk about just dialing everything up to the highest possible notch, and then involving not just the principals, but then getting a bunch of other networks in on the fight, and they know it's going to go down. And oh God, I mean, this will make you laugh on so many different levels because, you know, you've got all the variety of weapons and everything. You got the variety of characters and networks. You got Tim Robbins from the PBS, and you got Ben Stiller from the Spanish-speaking network because Ben Stiller is very Hispanic.
Yes, he is. Totally.
And then you got Vince Vaughn and everything, and then you got like Steve Carell holding a grenade.
Yeah.
And everything is just up, and there's a trident involved, and there's a horse, and there's just craziness.
My favorite part about that is the come down session in the office afterwards, where they were like, did you throw a trident? This brick is so stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I killed a guy.
Yeah.
He's like, you should probably get out of town for a little while.
They of course bastardized that in the second one.
They did.
Where they're like, you know, that first one worked so well, let's do it again with even more stars in it, but they don't even look like they're in the same scene.
I don't know if I'm watching the same movie as everybody else, because I thought Anchorman 2 was a giant piece of shit.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was a total retread, but there are people that really, really like that movie.
I haven't seen it.
No, it's not good. I was super disappointed in Anchorman 2, and the fact that they made that whole fight thing again, the big, huge, epic fight. They tried to go even more ridiculous with it, but the problem is there's just no connect in there. Like these people, like Jim Carrey and Will Smith and all these people that get in there, they look like they were just there for, like, hey, let's get Will Smith on for this one day, and they shoot that real quick, and then like, let's get Jim Carrey on this, because there's never any point where all these characters really interact with each other at all. It would have been great to see Will Smith and Jim Carrey fighting, but don't have that in there. And as you see it as it goes on and there's the fight, you're like, where's Jim Carrey in this? Where's Will Smith in this? Like, I'd like to know. Like, it'd be great if they were all there, but yeah, they totally bastardized. That first one is fantastic. That
first one's great. I mean, just seeing Tim Robbins come up and cut Luke Wilson's arm off.
Yeah. And he doesn't look too upset about it either. He's just like, oh,
damn it.
Yeah.
And then immediately Tim Robbins, after cutting off, he starts smoking his pipe.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my pick.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm choosing to go with a very recent movie for this answer, Deadpool. Now, the biggest laugh in the entire movie for me is the same scene that they shot that test footage for that ended up getting the movie greenlit, when he assaults that SUV on the highway and drops in through the sunroof. And it's a cool scene. A lot of what he says and does is funny, but when he holds up, it's only like a half-second joke, and he holds up this doodle of a stick man and says, have you seen this, man? And I lost it. And every time I see that movie, that part I know it's coming, but it's something about the delivery and the simplicity of the joke that in the middle of fighting four guys in a moving vehicle, he's also making jokes like, have you seen this, man? Oh, God, I love it. I could have picked a lot of scenes in that movie, but I went with that one.
I guess I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do a couple on this one, because one of them is, I don't know if it's a terribly funny all the way through fight, because in Clerks, Dante and Randall end up fighting at the end of Clerks. And, but I love the way, talk about another movie that the figure for how much it costs to make goes up and down depending on what year you're reading about it. I heard it was he maxed out credit cards for like $30,000, and then that's how the movie was made. But the way he shoots it is not only obviously super indie, and like this is the birth of indie cinema and everything. Well, just the sort of the hallmark of indie cinema, not the birth of it, but like he shoots it with Randall coming through the door, and the camera is a low camera shot, like shooting straight up. You can only see half the door and Randall's face as he comes in, but then you see a hand come in and grab him, and then it's just like this big huge fight going through the aisles of this this Quickie Mart thing, and like you see all this candy flying around. But the thing that makes me laugh the most about this scene, every single time it gets me, there's a point where you see a piece of like a loaf or like a submarine sandwich type bread getting picked out of some sort of container, and the next scene is just a cutaway of that bread going across Dante's face. It kills me every time because of the way it's cut, because it's just like there's bread, and then the next shot, boom, bread in the face. And afterwards when they're talking about it and everything, of course they've got FDS in their face and all other type of stuff. But that fight's always been funny to me. The other one is in Team America. Team America, at the very beginning of Team America, they're in Paris and everything, and there's a point where there's a mono battle about to happen, and they're like, all right. And so they like get in their like karate stances and everything. And as they run towards each other, they're puppets. So it's just like they're kind of dancing around on the screen, jumping up and down. There's no fists or anything flying. It's just them sitting there jumping up and down and everything. And finally somehow the guy wins, and whatever, that's
really
always
sets
been
the tone.
It really does.
That's so great.
Yes, absolutely. So basically that whole SinCast we just did is based on a question we got off of SoundCloud, right? So yeah, today won't be any Q&A. We basically did a whole huge Q&A there with all these fights and everything.
Keep them coming.
Absolutely. Keep going to SoundCloud and sounding off and telling us what you think about us in person and whatever. Maybe we can share an ice cream. Maybe we can just hang out and look at real estate together. But no, keep on going to SoundCloud and giving us your comments, telling what we're good or bad or whatever. And I think this is going to be the SinCast for this week. This is Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher signing off.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
Only a woman is allowed to touch me there. All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always.
You morphed into Nick Nolte for a second.
Welcome to the SinCast, everybody. This is Chris Atkinson.
You sound like Marge's sister.
Yeah. I'm going to be sitting here watching a bunch of MacGyver. Tonight.
Holy shit, that was funny.
Goddamn time-traveling robots and covering up the goddamn tracks. I don't think there's been one moment in a movie in the past 30 years where I was just sitting there not enjoying the movie, and that just comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very singular quality moment in a shit movie.
It's almost like if they had known what they had, they could have centered it a little bit more around J.K. Simmons and his like investigation through the years, and then that would have still paid off as a great line later on, because he could have been like, well, these time traveling robots, man, they're always, he doesn't say the line completely. He just says, like these time traveling robots, they know how to cover their tracks and they know how to get out of this mother. And then like later on when that happens,
you know what I hate about that song? The Rollin' in the Deep song?
No.
It's an awesome song. It's such a good song.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't need is fucking backup singers.
You say that about all Adele songs.
They don't need, but in this one in particular, like the harmonization on Send My Love to Your New Lover is perfect. But like you could have had it all, and the dip-a-dip-bop-a-dip, skip-a-dip-a-dip-dip,
I actually like in Hello, I like the background vocals there. Hello from the other side.
Oh, yeah, no, those are fun.
The side. Yeah, but you wrote a sin about those.
I'm just saying that they're not necessary. They're fine, and they're not as egregious as the fucking Rolling in the Deep little chipmunks in the background.
Like
they sound like chipmunks.
I've heard off her new album.
Mm-hmm.
Come, Wendy, let us jump the hilly brush. Okay, good. We'll just say that when we get into the main topic.
Mm-hmm.
Today's main topic is the Q&A that expanded to a main topic.
Say it just like that.
Yes.
Let's say it just like that. I'll just take what I just said and cut it in there. And it'll be awesome.